Hi, welcome back. Today we are going to discuss this twisting system that is based on feedback in 3D space. I always loved these twisting and spirals, and especially this node in SOP context. Although it's a pretty computationally heavy operation, so I found a way to recreate this in point clouds. So using point clouds, you could do the same operation, but use much more points. I think it is based on your GPU, but at least several millions. So let's start from scratch and build simple point cloud instancing system as we did before. We need point generator, and let's choose a simple cube surface, and let's start from 200,000 points. Let's build null. It would be position. And for instancing, I will use simple box. Camera, light, and render as usual. So we have this cube. Let's turn on shadows. And also let's rotate each cube, each instance in unpredictable direction. We need now to deviate this system. And it would be our angles. Sorry. Yeah, much better. Also, we need just simple material. Let's use one. And I don't know, let's use something like this. For example, it doesn't matter now. So, to create twist in Y direction, let's see it in GL mode. Let's imagine that we turn each slice of this cube in y direction. So we need a gradient of angles for each segment of this cube. For this, let's select only y coordinates. You could do that using reorder node. (32 mono). Green is y direction. Like in RGB space, I just to remember that each pixel represents 1 point, and 1 point contains RGB or XYZ directions. So green one is y direction. And let's add feedback. Compose it, and let's choose over here. And also a keyboard for reset our feedback. Now, if you add simple point transform and start to rotate cube along like any axis, you could see this movement. It's actually a start of our system, and now we should understand how we could rotate each segment, each small slice of this cube in a little different speed. For this, we could use a very powerful node. It's Mate. Let's select that one, and Mate should receive 2 layers, like two textures, and it will blend them based on the values of the third texture. So you could here we need to use we need to rotate each slice based on y values. Also, we need to turn here in matter, we need to choose red because it's mono texture, and also we need to normalize it between 0 and 1 because Mate choose the value of each pixel based on value between 0 and 1. So let's start. Our system again. Let's choose -0.4, for example, and we already got simple twisting system. We could use second point transform here to rotate not only top of the shape but also the bottom. At any moment you could choose like the same angle and you will get the shape with these twists, for example. Also, you could use also you could change these values parametrically and control your system. For example, let's choose here -4 and 1.6. And pressing the K2, you could rotate it in other direction. Of course, you could use L4 to also to change that value. But this is very simple setup, and we could actually elaborate these two a little more complex shapes. For example, it's very interesting when you start to change not only one rotate value, but also pivot or transform. For example, let's add second transform here. And choose, for example, not usual transform, but point transform. And let's choose, for example, rotate also in that direction and in that. And let's change also pivot. For example, here and here. I just choose values randomly. You could choose your own, and we could see that we get this nice spiral, something like this. Because you change pivot of rotation at each feedback cycle, and it could and it changes in pretty unpredictable way for us. Of course, at any moment you could stop the whole cycle, froze it, and work with the shape you obtained. Also, let's add some translation to this movement. and increase point numbers, for example 400,000. Also, you could use different shapes, for example sphere, or sphere surface. I think this is a good one. And still you have opportunity to vary these values. Okay, the next thing that you could do is like now we operate within one layer of points, actually only in y-axis, but we also could do the same for x and z-axis. For example, let's add second meta. Duplicate this one, choose red and connect it to here, and use second transform. Currently nothing is changed, but we need to choose certain values. Also, for example, very small translation in x axis. For example, that one. Here is red. Sure. Small rotation along x-axis, and also let's change pivot a little here and here, because as you rotate in x-axis, you need to change pivot in y and z axis, because this one won't affect rotation in that direction. You see, form starts to be like more complex, and you could get a very different looks out of this. And the same here, you could parametrically change any values and use different shapes, and especially your own 3D point clouds that could be obtained from any geometry. For example, with cube 1 or cube surface. The next thing here to play is level node. because there is a very simple and beautiful way to slice whole geometry. Let's for a minute switch off this transform and add a level here. Here in step, let's apply step size to it. For example, this one. In that way, you get sliced geometry, and I think it's very beautiful. Same approach, you could vary step size here. You could stop it at any moment and use to process like to get something out of this. You could play with values here. For example, let's set something small like that. Yeah, I like that one. And if we use the same level for let's set it 0.15, the same level for second method, we should obtain squares. Also, as you could see, there are a lot of room to play with this system. Also, a way to elaborate our system is to include noise in this feedback. Pretty standard approach. Let's try it. Let's switch this one for a moment. And also you could apply noise to different parts. Let's start from this one to the whole shape actually. For example, let's switch off level and tweak some parameters here. For example, period 3, harmonics 2, harmonic spreads also should be 2, and very small amount of noise. Let's start. And you could see how also we need to connect here. Yep. And you could see how the whole shape starts slowly morphs into something very interesting. Sure, you could play with this parameter, Also monochrome off. Like, but it's interesting to play with small parameters here for me now. You could change period or apply this noise to different parts of our system. For example, if we connect it here, we should apply this noise only to the bottom of this shape. Well, not only, but the maximum of gradient should be here. Again, you could change shape. Oh, sorry. Yeah, something like that. Or we could use this noise after the second matter to affect the whole system. Let's do it, for example, here. Also let's you could see how slicing affects box shape too. I like this one, but now let's switch this off too and see what happens. Also, let's stop translation here. And go back to sphere surface. As you could see, you could get very interesting spirals here with very unlinear movement. Okay, also I want to show you a very important, to my opinion, very important complex in whole TouchDesigner environment, that you, as long as you could start to wrote your own functions, you could use them together. It's actually modularity principle. For example, in the first tutorial, I showed you circularization of linear shapes. And let's use this system I did in first tutorial here. Let's switch off the second matter and leave it on the first one and use just I don't know, just cube. And if we connect I remember that this circularization system turning like it get the object that should be normalized along x axis below 0 between 0 and 1. Let's do that. And now we could use this component. Something interesting, but not really what I want. To get another shape, we could rotate the whole system along z-axis. Like you could rotate it along any axis, but for our purpose, I prefer this one. And you get again Möbius shape. This is another way to get this one. And we could stop rotation, this twisting at any moment. For example, right now, because it merges pretty smoothly, and pause it. And start rotate it along x-axis. You could control the number of twists using this system as I showed you before. For example, you could change the value here. Yeah. For example, now. Oh, not good idea. 1 second. 0.3. Yeah, now it should rotate smoothly. Also, you could use different shapes here, for example, sphere or cube surface, which is my favorite actually. Let's start. And you could get some, like this way you could understand how I get some of my works. I think that's all. As you could see, this feedback system is very simple, although it's very powerful tool, and you could get a huge numbers, like I mean limitless number of different shapes, very complex in some cases. You could try different operators within this system, because in 3D space some trivial operators would affect in a little different way. And I hope to see your results. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.